Good morning, and welcome to this orientation to the Nibi Walk for the Willow. I'm Marty Harding, Chair of the Board of Northwoods and Waters of the St. Croix Heritage Area. We promote the natural, cultural, and historic resources of the St. Croix watershed, along with countless individuals and organizations all over this 8,000 square mile area. This year's Nibi Walk will be held during Earth Month, which we celebrate each year. Senator Gaylord Nelson, father of Earth Day, was born and raised in Clear Lake, Wisconsin, so we claim birthright to Earth Day here in the watershed. Today we will hear from Gary Nareen, chair of our Earth Day committee, from John Collins, past president of the Friends of the Willow and the Kinnickinnick State Parks, and of course, Sharon Day. Sharon is chair of the Indigenous Peoples Task Force and leader of Nibi Walks all over the country. We are so grateful to have Sharon with us today and in conducting Nibi Walks here in our watershed. Sharon will talk about her work with Nibi Walks, let us know what we should expect, tell us about Nibi Walk protocols, and give us some of the details about the Nibi Walk for the Willow. But first, we'll begin with taking a breath, sitting back, and imagining ourselves walking with Sharon and other Nibi Walkers on the Kettle River nearly 5 years ago.
We need to change our relationship with the water if we are going to survive as a species. We need to begin to see the water, the rivers, the streams, the creeks, the lakes, and the oceans as sources of life for us. My name is Sharon Day. I'm an enrolled member of the Boys Fort Band of Ojibwe in northern Minnesota. When we walk, we are praying to the water spirits, Nibi Manadu.
We are in north central Minnesota along the Kettle River, and it flows south heading towards the St. Croix River, and then it flows into the Mississippi River that heads down to the Gulf. Sharon Day has gotten together a group of people who are walking for the water. And what we do is walk with a copper kettle full of water from the headwaters of the Kettle River, and we keep the water moving all the way along the route of the river. We're walking by road and by trail all the way along to where the Kettle River will eventually join up to the St. Croix River. And that's about 20 miles a day for 4 days. There's truly an appreciation for the water that the people share and a value for the water that is not related to economics, it's related to life.
Bonjour, Netan Nagamo Coin de Genekaz, Megizi Nindodem, Nagajiwanong Nindon Jaba, Mede Koyendao. My English name is Liz Jockla, and I'm from Fond du Lac Reservation. People have forgotten about their relationships to many things, and one of them is water. I think doing water walking, we have made a conscious choice to acknowledge that relationship. When I was a kid, growing up in northern Minnesota, I know we didn't have perfect water then either, but when I was a kid, I could swim in the water, I ate fish out of the water, I didn't have any worries that doing so was going to hurt me. I have kids, 16, 9, and 4, and I worry that they're not going to be able to afford to buy water. I don't want my kids to suffer. I don't want my kids to have to feel like they need to be on the front lines like people are today. There are people literally laying their lives on the line so that we can have clean water, so that we can maintain what clean water we have now.
It's important to keep these ceremonies alive. and to send it down to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, to keep our culture alive, to keep the waterways alive.
Am so looking forward to us being able to do this with the Nibi Walk. So those of you that, Liz and Sharon and everyone who did the Kettle River, we are so grateful. And Sharon, I have a bit of news for you. It's that your friend John Call has agreed to video our walk on the Willow. So we will have John with us. He couldn't be here today. There's several people who said because of this particular weekend, they could not be here, but they will be with us in April. End of April. So as we're planning for this, we have a couple of people that are pretty instrumental in getting things arranged for us, helping us figure out a lot of the details. Cecily Harris is doing so, as well as Gary Noreen. Jarrell is going to help us with the New Richmond part. We have people here from Hudson that hopefully will be helping us with the Hudson end of things. But we're going to have Gary and John tell us a little bit more about the Willow and the Kinney and the Friends group. Gary, can you start us off?
I'd love to. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Gary Noreen. I live in Chisago City with Marty. Spent most of my life right here in the St. Croix watershed. When we canceled last year, I was so disappointed. And I had to say that when I called or emailed Sharon this year to see if she was interested, she wrote back, "I'm itching to walk." And that made my day. So thanks for that, Sharon. I'm just going to give you a little information about the Willow. It's 61 miles long. It begins up in the area around Clear Lake and flows down to the St. Croix, just north of Hudson, flows into our wild and scenic St. Croix River. It winds back and forth with a slow flowage through the Ceylon Marsh State Wildlife Area, passes nearby Deer Park, also through New Richmond, Boardman, and Burkhart, and then into the Willow River State Park after that, which John will cover next. It's about a total of 184 square mile watershed, so it's a fairly small one of the St. Croix watershed, but a very important one. Like other St. Croix River tributaries, the Willow has issues with phosphorus pollution and other problems. In January of 2020, Greg Seitz reported in St. Croix 360 that waste from a confined animal feeding operation, otherwise known as a CAFO, in western Wisconsin, polluted Hutton Creek back in November of 2019. And that's a tributary to the Willow, and it caused some problems with fish kills and other things. Emerald Sky Dairy was the one who had been spreading manure on the fields. It's in the Woodville area, which is east of New Richmond. So that was one fairly big issue, but that one is a 3,000 head dairy cow operation. There's also another one that's being planned, another CAFO that they're trying to stop up in the Grantsburg area. And the St. Croix River Association, that I know a number of you are involved with, is working to stop that CAFO because of the potential for pollutants like the problem that the Willow had. What else? I think the other thing I was going to do is share my screen and just show you a few photos. John Collins was kind enough to give Marty and I a little walk from his place down to the Willow. And this is the bridge that we will be crossing, right, John?
Yes.
Okay, that's John in the background there and Marty up front. And here's a view from the bridge. We probably won't have any snow on the ground when we walk, he says confidently. There's the view the other direction. And one of the more scenic spots on this part of the walk was right here. It was just glorious. And then the falls that I think John promises to take us by, and a view downstream from there. So without any more information, I think I'll just pass it on to John.
Thank you, Gary.
Yep.
So much of the state park is land that was associated with 3 hydro dams that were built by Christian Burckhardt, after whom Burckhardt is named. Around the turn of the 20th century, the river drops about 250 feet through the park. And so in addition to the falls there and the dam by the beach area, there's rapids and increasingly deep gorge as it goes through the moraine, which is from the last glacier, through a section of rock that's just adjacent to a major fault that runs from Afton up through Hudson and through the park. That's about a 300-foot offset. And so that's apparently why that rock is there and why it ends there. So it's fast-moving water through much of the park, lots of rapids. Below the falls, there are springs along the north bank, all along the river. And so below the last dam, the only remaining dam in the park, the river never freezes. You can go down there when it's 25 below and it's open water and steaming and full of ducks and geese and swans, and including some of the exotic northern ducks. And so below, once it leaves the park, it drops about another 50 feet before joining the St. Croix. So from the entrance to the park to the St. Croix, it's about a 300-foot drop. We'll encounter the park at the junction of County A and County E. There's a small parking lot there. And a riverside trail takes us along the beginnings of the gorge in kind of a loop. It's a little less than a mile. We come back out on County A and walk on County A, County I, and a bit of river road for a little less than a mile, about 8/10. As the river drops into the gorge, we have to climb up over the moraine and down to the falls. And if you want to take a slight detour, there are 2 high overlooks looking out over the gorge. We can decide that now, or we can decide it when we're there. We cross the river at the falls. We follow the park trail along the south bank of the river, past the beach to the lower bridge, where you saw that photo. From the lower bridge, then we depart from the trails. We follow game trails and an old, very rough fisherman's trail downstream. That's about 8/10 of a mile before we come out to Troutbrook Road. We'll have that portion at least cleared so there's no brush hitting you in the face, but it's single file and fairly rough. There are a few places where you have to climb over a deadfall. Nothing huge, but you do have to get your foot up over a fairly large deadfall. And so that's about 7 miles for the park segment. And once you're out of the park, down Troutbrook Road through Hudson is about another 2 miles. Gary?
Is that part going to be guided, John?
I will guide the part through the park, and it's up to you how that works exactly. But as I said, that last segment is going to be single file.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll have it marked, probably with colored yarn through the confusing part. Most of it's not too confusing.
Thank you.
And I think John is cautious to tell us what it's like, but Gary and I walked it without any difficulty. It's a really beautiful part of the park that I had not seen before. And so we appreciate all of your work, John, to figure out that route and to support us, and all the work that you do with the Friends of the Willow and McKinney Parks. So thank you so much.
If we had gone last year, the trail goes right under an eagle nest and gets up on a bluff where you're almost level with the eagle nest. Unfortunately, that old cottonwood tree lost a big part of itself last fall, and the eagle nest is no longer there.
And we may have lost it in that big wind. So hopefully they have a new home somewhere.
We still see them.
Oh, good. They're around. Thank you both, Gary and John, for all of your work on this. We're now going to have Sharon talk us through what we should expect, some of the protocols, and some of the details about how this particular walk is going to work. Sharon, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Bujun and in the way magani do nagamoma ingin indishna cause wabashishan dodam Ojibwe Kwayandao Nijo Madeo Madewana Kwayandao. So just happy to really be here and very excited to finally be able to walk the Willow River. Before I think there was still quite a bit of snow on the ground last year when I drove to where I think the headwaters is. It comes out of the ground in a farmer's field, and but it was still frozen, so I couldn't really see the water. But my young helper did go over there at the on the day that we were supposed to walk. She went to the headwaters and offered some asema and said, you know, we haven't forgotten. We will walk you. And so there's I think it's and we'll send this out to everybody, but we'll start the walk where we can easily access the open water, which probably isn't in the middle of that farmer's field. But on the next road, which is 10th Avenue and 10th Street near Clear Lake, that's where there's a bridge over, the Willows, a little creek there. And that's probably where we'll gather about 8 o'clock on the 31st and have our opening ceremony. And so just a few things, on our Nibi Walk webpage, there is, you have to scroll around, but you can find the Nibi Walk protocols. And, these walks have been, as far as we know, in this contemporary time, began in 2003 when Josephine Mandam and a grandmother in the Medewan Lodge, Three Fires Lodge, that both Liz and I are participants. She is the woman who started these walks. And so historically, among the Ojibwe, women are responsible for caring for the water and men are responsible for the fire. Two things that are necessary for life in this northern hemisphere. And so women are the ones who make the offering, gather the water, sing the water songs. and make those petitions or those prayers for the water. And so, you know, we have many words for water, and Nibi is water. And after we've walked and we've carried this water and we've sung to it and prayed with it and spoken to it, only then does it become Medewa Bu, which is sacred water. And that's the same thing that happens in our ceremonies. So not only among Ojibwe women, probably all women in the world were the ones who gathered the water when we still had to gather water. And many places people are still gathering their water, the water that they're going to use every day. You know, most places within the United States, you know, we don't have to do that. We just turn a faucet and we expect that the water that comes out is safe and clean and enough for us to drink and cook and bathe in. And so because we have that luxury of that kind of technology and infrastructure where we can just turn the faucet on, you know, we don't think so much about the water anymore. But I can tell you when I was growing up in northern Minnesota, you know, the first thing we did in the morning was go to the well and get the water, and it was the last thing we did at night. And when you gather your water, you know exactly how much water you're going to use. And so you have a relationship with that water. And when you gather your water and you carry it, you use it more than once. You know, here we use water and it goes down into the drain and into our septic or into, you know, our municipalities, and then it gets treated and then we use it again. So, you know, water is so important. Water is life. There can be no water without life. And I remember the last time that I had the opportunity to be with Dr. Emoto. I actually met him 4 times over the course of 15 years. But the last time that I was with him was in Duluth at a water ceremony. And he gave a lecture that night. And of course, Dr. Emoto was the Japanese scientist who did the experiments with water droplets. And by saying loving, kind words to them, you know, he dropped the droplet into a little glass dish. And I know there's a word for it, but it escapes me at the moment. But you drop that little drop in there, and then those droplets would freeze. And when, in the experiment that he did, when he said loving, kind things to the water, or put it near a flower, or played beautiful music, those crystals were so beautiful. Conversely, if you said negative things, angry things to that water, that droplet, the crystals formed, you know, into really grotesque shapes. And so, so he did all these experiments. And what he said when we were in Duluth, which, you know, like I'll always remember, is he said water had a memory, and we could communicate with the water, which of course, you know, resonates very, very much with us, because we believe that everything has a spirit, that the water has a spirit. And as we're walking with the water, you know, we're speaking to the spirit, the essence of that water. And so when we were in Duluth, what he said was, water is the great mystery. Water is the great mystery. And I believe that God is in the water. And, you know, like I had not heard him say it that clearly that way before. And I think, you know, like as, you know, we believe that everything's in a circle. And so when we come into the world, you know, we come into the world, we have gifts and babies, you know, like, you know, they shine, right? They're like so beautiful, and they're closer to the spirit world. And so they still have that essence of the spirit world with them. And I also believe that as we, as we approach that other point on the circle where we leave this realm, that our spirits are also more luminous, and and you're closer to that realm. And so I believe that, Dr. Emoto, he died the next year. And I think that, when you know that you're closer, perhaps you say things that you might have been more hesitant or, about before. And I know certainly that's been true with, some of my older sisters as they approach that, they were so much more clear and direct with my mother as well, with their communication with us. And so that is what we believe in our spiritual teachings as well, that originate among the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi, and other and tribal people, is that water is life. And among the Lakota and Nakota, they of course say Mini Wachoni, water is life. And so so in this world that we live in now, where everything is so fast, and so we've lost that connection, many of us, with the water. And of course, you are kind of a unique bunch, because you are so active in the St. Croix and all of these environmental things. But for the most part, people have lost that connection. And so one of the things with the water walks is we provide an opportunity for people to make that connection. And because it stemmed from Ojibwe ceremonies, we wish to honor that. And so the songs we sing, we have Medewan spiritual water walks, but we only sing them in Medewan ceremonies. This is not a Medewan ceremony, although its roots are there. We've had to make new songs that we can sing with people who are not Medewan, who are not within that circle. And as far as I know, we've been very protective of our spiritual ceremonies. And so, only Ojibwe, only Anishinaabe, only people from, whose ancestors are from this hemisphere, in some way can become Medewan. So we have made beautiful songs, though. And we've also made some other songs, tobacco song, Asema, From Me to You. We sing songs that have came to be in these contemporary times, and those are the songs that we'll be singing. But we will follow other protocols of our ceremonial ways, and that is women, when we go to ceremony, women wear a long skirt, something that covers our knees and creates that sort of vortex. Women are responsible for the water because we are life givers. Whether we ever chose to bring another human being into this world or not, we all have that ability. And so, that skirts creates that sort of vortex from, that place where, from our body, that life comes into the world, and that connection with Mother Earth, the mother of everything. And so that's the reason for the long skirt. I get asked that question a million times, like, why do women wear skirts? And it is because it creates that connection, and it's also the protocol for when we go to ceremony. So we ask women to follow our protocol, to wear a long skirt if you wish to carry the water. If you don't wish to carry the water and you're happy just to walk along, then that's fine too. Not going to force anybody to do anything, but we ask you to respect our protocols. And men carry the staff. However, and it seems like we'll have many men, but if there is not a man available to carry the staff, women can also carry the staff. Sorry, men, that doesn't go for carrying the water, though. Women can do everything, but men can only carry the staff. And so in the morning when we gather at that spot, and Marty will send out a note to everybody before exactly where that spot is going to be. But as far as I know, it'll be at 10th Avenue and 10th Street. And there's just a little, it's a little, I believe it's a dirt road. And there's a little bridge that goes over with the Willow. And we will gather there, and we'll gather the water there. And at that point is where we will go over this again, not in this great detail, but we will create an order for the day with whoever's there. And that doesn't mean that that won't change. It will, because other people will join us throughout the day. But in that morning, we will create an order, and it'll be something like, you know, we're going to stand in a circle. We're all going to speak for our Sema. We're going to say what our order is for that day. So it might be like Marty will be first, Liz will be next, Darcy will be third, and like that. And that's the order that you're going to carry the water in. And the men will do the same thing with you. You will be in that circle, every other woman, and you will carry the water there. I mean, you will carry the staff when they carry the water. And so I always tell people, so the most important thing is to know who you follow, because when it's your turn to walk, and most of the time we walk for a mile. If somebody you know is elderly, has some physical challenges like a bad knee, you know, maybe you will walk a half a mile. And we will make adjustments for that as we go. But I mean, and if you tell us that in the beginning, we'll know that. So so that's the order. And the cars will also, so when Marty's walking, you know, I'll assume that Gary's going to carry the stopper. Then somebody has to move their car up, unless there's somebody who's just doing shuttling people. But somebody will have to move their car up to that mile point. So we know they'll move their car up to that mile marker on your odometer and stop there. And then that's where whoever, say Liz is the next walker, she'll be there ahead waiting to take that water, because the water never stops. The water keeps moving, nor do we go backwards. So any sightseeing things that you want to do, like the following day in the park, the water's going to keep moving. There will be no detours, and the water will keep moving, but people can go back and go to those viewpoints after they're either before they carry the water or after the water. But the water's going to keep moving from the moment we start in the morning until we end that night. And I believe the first night we're going to try to end near this park in New Richmond. So what we ask is people to bring a Sema, because as you walk, every time you're going, we're going to crisscross, especially in the beginning, the Willow several times. And every time you cross over the Willow, you're going to offer your Sema to that, and any other stream or that we may see, any flowing water. You see a mud puddle, you know, you don't have to put a Sema in there. But if you see anything where the water's moving and flowing, also if we see an animal that you know, sadly we see many animals that have been hit by cars, and there are other things too. There was on the Mississippi Walk, there was about a mile where there were just like dead bees on the road. And so, but you're going to offer your Sema, because you know that animal had a spirit, and we don't know how long it's been there, but you're going to offer Sema. And for the men, if you are able to move the animal off the road, you know, that's great if you're able to. But we don't want to make sure everybody is safe. And when you come to, if you see an animal, don't step over it, you know, step around it. And hopefully, you know, you'll all have your tobacco pouches from when we when we walked. This is a pouch that somebody made and sent me in the mail. And but you know, you'll wear this around your neck, and you see something, you keep walking, but you reach in, so they always have a wide opening, so you can just put your hand in easily and then put it down. So that's we'll begin with ceremony. At the end of the day, we'll also circle up. There'll be in that park, wherever we stop, there will be a circle on the ground with, sometimes we use pebbles, twigs, whatever it is we can find, and we make a circle and we offer our asema there, and we ask permission to rest. And the way Josephine always said it to me, it was, you know, in Ojibwe, we say Gijada Ge Asema. And what that means is, she used to kind of chuckle about this. She'd say, that means wait right here. And it also means like, don't get into mischief, you know, wait right here and I'm going to be back. And then that's where we're going to start the next morning, and that at that same circle, with again tobacco, and our thoughts and our song as the first walkers start off. And when we pass the pail of water and the staff to another person, you know, we always say, in God is it your gate, Nibi Onje, which is simply, I will do it for the water. And that's on our website. Sometimes people write it on their hand. People are really nervous about it who aren't Ojibwe, because Ojibwe is not the easiest language. And, but, you know, like if you, the person who you're taking the water from will also say that to you. In God's J. So, you know, somebody will either be saying it to you or you're saying it to somebody else. It doesn't matter what order it is, as long as you're acknowledging, you know, giving a word of encouragement, you know, that's we're doing this for the water. So that's all I can think of right now. Is there any questions? Liz or Darcy, either one of you have anything to add to, since you've walked with me many times?
I guess think that one important thing that I learned is that if we try to like think like the water or be like the water as we do the work, because the water doesn't have any like human, you know, emotions or frustrations or ideas about controlling things or or anything like that. And you know, even me, I've been on a few water walks, you know, sometimes I think, oh, this should be a certain way, and then I have to remind myself, oh, it's going to happen the way it's going to happen, as long as the water is moving forward and we're doing this with a good open heart, you know, that's the main work we're doing. That's
yes. All. Mm-hmm. Yeah, our goal is to get that water from where it comes out in the earth to the confluence with the St. Croix. You know, that is our primary goal, and to just keep it moving, you know, keep it moving. I also ask people not to talk when they're carrying the water, because you have like all those other moments, and people will, you know, move their cars up ahead, and they'll be in a little cluster where it's possible to park off the road, and there's a lot of time there for visiting and chatting. But when you're walking with the water, I ask you to be silent, because if we're talking, you know, we can't hear anything else, right? And what we want you to do is to, you know, have all of your intentions, all of your thoughts, all of your prayers going to that water that you're carrying. And sometimes people say, well, we've hardly seen the river all day. And where you have the river with you. It's in that copper vessel that you're carrying, and that's you know, I most of the time we're away from the river because that's the way the roads go, and we can't actually walk on people's private property. So we just want you to be like very intentional about your thoughts and your intentions. This is a very short walk, so we just want to have like really good energy and I think this is something like my 21st or 22nd walk that I've led. And so we've learned a few things along the way, and we won't stop for lunch. We're just going to keep going because if we stop for lunch, that's about an hour. That's 5 miles that we don't have, and so we want to just keep going from the moment we start until we stop at the end of the day.
Sure. There's a jog at the beginning on the map where you go up north and then around and back south again.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a reason for that.
Yes. I could have went south. I think closer to the river was the reason for going north.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we could have went the other way too. But the river is someplace. I'm pointing at my screen like you can see me. But, I think it's closer up that way. Yeah.
Good. Will we be singing along as we're walking?
Yes, you cannot chit chat, but you can sing.
Okay.
So as long as you're singing a water song, yeah. If other people have questions, they can put it in the chat as well. But it's a fairly, it'll take us a little while to get organized in the morning and for people to sort of fall into sort of the pattern or the rhythm of it. But there always is a very nice rhythm, a pattern that develops and as we move the water along.
This is a rain or shine event, correct?
Yes. Rain or shine.
I showed you the first map. This is the map through the Willow. I'll show you that one too, because I've got it here.
Park.
Through the park, yep. And we will send you both of these maps. John, I want to make sure that I have the most current one. I think this is it, but if it's not, we'll make sure that we get the correct one out to you.
I will send you an updated one.
Yeah, and I looked at that one. I thought, boy, that one, I think you've made some changes. So that's great. So I will send that out to both of those maps to you, along with other information that develops. If you have not registered, if you could just send an email to me, that would be great. Then I'll have your email contact information. And it's just my name, martyharding1@gmail.com. I put that in the chat for you. So I want to make sure that everybody has all of the information.
One more question for Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed on the Nibi Walk website a reverse walk on the Mississippi. Is that planned for this year?
No, that will be next year.
Okay.
And my intention with that walk is to take some young people with me. I have I'm a part of a fellowship program, and the fellowship is to leave is for me to figure out how to leave a legacy and pass on what I know. And so I'm going to take young people, sponsor the walk myself, take young people with me, and then we're going to start. Before we always start at the headwaters. So we can take the water that's pure and clean and take it to, you know, the mouth where many times it's far more polluted. Didn't used to be that way, but it is that way today. But this time to start with the water that is polluted and come up the Mississippi and then pour it into Itasca, where then it will make its journey back to the Gulf. But to take these young people with me so that they can learn all of the, you know, we always have youth with us on every walk, but this time they're going to be able to take notes, they're going to study, they're going to learn everything that I know. And that is so that one day when I'm gone, they will be able to carry on.
Bravo.
Okay.
I have a question, Sharon. I am wondering, am I going to be able to still carry the water if I'm being pushed in a wheelchair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Good.
Are there other questions that anyone has of Sharon? John has one.
Is this a time for logistical questions or just like more specific towards the walk itself?
Any questions?
Okay, so it starts on April 30th and that's a Friday, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it'll go until nightfall?
Yeah.
Or more or less?
Yep.
And so I'm teaching all that day. And so if I were to join in part way, how would I go about that?
I'm going to see if we can get the, you know, we do have a spot GPS that and Joanne Robertson and Sue St. Marie usually follows every walk. And I hadn't really planned on doing it for this one, but I will contact her and see if she can follow us. And that way there'll be a link to the GPS. Marty, I'll send that to you and you can send that out. And so the GPS sends a signal every 10 minutes or something, and you can follow that.
And then will folks camp for the night somewhere? Is there plans for that?
I think most people are fairly close enough that, you know, they can return to their home. Liz and Darcy about the only ones, and I don't know if they'll be there every day. But we'll work that out with them. But everybody else, I think, is close enough, you know, like you can drive home and drive back in the morning.
Sharon,
Yep.
I am thinking about bringing my pop-up and putting it at like the halfway mark, which I heard was probably around New Richmond area, and staying there for the night. That's what I'm planning on doing. However, if it's cold, I don't think I want to sleep overnight.
Yeah.
So I'll do a hotel.
Yeah. You're also welcome to come out to the farm. We're in Center City. Liz, we do have, you know, a bunch of dogs, but there's a little trailer that the dogs are never in. Allergies.
How far away from Center City is the halfway point? New Richmond. How far away from New Richmond is?
I don't know, 40. I guess Gary would probably know better than I do.
About 45 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That might work nicely, actually. So there, with that, Liz, I have an extra bed in my pop-up too, if you don't want to sleep with dogs.
Okay.
Well, we have the trailer, so.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
so the trailer, the dogs are never in, so.
Okay.
We'll see how it shakes out.
Go ahead.
So we'll see how it shakes out. Thanks. Thanks for all that.
Yeah.
We'll all fight for you, Liz. We have an extra bedroom here too, so you have plenty of places, but we have a cat, so that's probably not going to work.
Well, thanks, everyone. Yeah.
What time do you start Friday morning?
We're gonna start at 8.
Okay.
And
Are we
probably the
same
same
for
time the
Saturday?
next morning, Sharon?
Yes, yes, we'll need to start at 8 because, you know, we're doing, I don't know exactly I can't remember the exact miles on the route, but the walking miles are always different than the exact river miles. So, but we'll, you know, we have a little distance to cover each day.
Is it customary to go to a restaurant together and eat? Those people who are finishing the day together?
You know, we usually try to do that, to eat have some meal together, simply, you know, especially since we don't stop for lunch anymore, just to have people time to get to know each other and share a little bit.
We have been talking, do you want to comment on that, Jarrell? We've been talking about getting some funding to be able to have, provide box lunches or box dinners for people. And there is a restaurant, we're working with Jarrell on that to see if they can cater for us. Do you want to comment, Jarrell?
Yeah, there's a local restaurant called Table 65 in New Richmond that she does a lot of fresh food, local food, really nice offerings, and we can probably get Ann Hall to cater a box lunch type of meal that we could have at the park where we're going to end up in New Richmond. So that's kind of what we're thinking of doing.
So we're going to be
and how we
some funding for that to be able to cover the cost of that for people. Once we know how many people are actually going to come.
Right.
So thanks for your help in figuring that out.
You're welcome.
A follow-up on the distance between Center City and New Richmond. It's about 30 miles and about 38 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Any other questions that anyone has?
Are there any plans at the end for dinner or in Hudson?
We have not planned out either one really in any details. So any ideas for that are certainly welcome. I think it would be lovely to be able to have a group gathering at the end. Buck, what are your thoughts from a Hudson perspective?
Well, I don't think there was enough detail on the map you put on the screen for me to quite see it. Is the intention to stop at the place by the dam where the Willow joins the St. Croix, or down in Lakefront Park? By the dam, it's public land, but it's not a very hospitable site. It's folks throw away trash and stuff like that. In that area, the river kind of divides. You know, part of it goes through the dam, and part of it goes down a spillway and flows along the eastern side of the St. Croix until it joins it roughly at the old railroad station, the place where the swans gather in the winter. For those of you who are used to the lakefront, and that would be a more hospitable site, I suppose, if we were going to try to cater lunches, box lunches or something to the site. It would be a Saturday night, which is a whopping time in downtown Hudson, same as in New Richmond, of course. Those weekend nights, it's a busy time. So I suppose that's why you're thinking, Jarrell, of box lunches being brought to us rather than going to a restaurant. Suppose if we were thinking along those lines in Hudson, our thoughts would go the same way. Maybe, Jackie, you and I ought to talk about this. You and I are used to putting together all kinds of stuff in in the Hudson area and know what most of the options are. John Collins, are you anticipating that a few of the board members from the Friends of the Willow River and Kinnickinnick State Parks organization are likely to be participating in this because they've heard about it through you?
One, possibly two, are interested. One, Tim Nixon is helping me with that last bit of trail. Whether he has time for the walk, I don't know yet. But I've been forwarding him the information, so he knows about it. And he knew about today's meeting and apparently was otherwise occupied, so.
Or delegated it to you, yep. Okay, well, I'll keep in touch with you, Gary and Marty, if anything, well, with whatever we can develop. Certainly we can have, you know, takeout menus available and people could call into Urban Olive and Vine or one of the other restaurants and have box lunches brought out to whatever site we choose to, or one of us could go and pick up the lunches and bring them for everybody. We can do something there for those who indicate sometime in the early afternoon that they would like to have a meal. No later than early afternoon, shall we say?
We won't know. We'll know better, won't we, Sharon, after the first day, how far we're able to go and a more accurate time of when we'll be arriving.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be, you know, it's probably going to be, you know, I'm guessing 5. We should be able to cover whatever we have left by then. I will go back and look at that, you know, for where the spot is. That when I drove it last year, I did see like where the dam is, and it also seems like it might be very wet in there, aside from the dam. So I'd like to, but I don't know where that area is that we're talking about, Clarence, where, is that like farther south?
Yes, it is farther downstream. When you were there, you surely saw the dam, you know, directly at the west end of the lake, but you might not have noticed there's a sort of spillway along the southern edge of that little bay there, and part of the Willow naturally goes through the spillway, and it hugs the eastern shore of the St. Croix River, because there's a delta, you know, and various water courses there, and it doesn't actually join the St. Croix then until another quarter of a mile south from that place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take
historically, that's where the river, historically, that's where the river flows.
Yeah, and there are no picnic tables at either of those locations. We'd have to go even further south to get to the beach house parking lot across from the Phipps, for those of you who know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, before we encounter enough picnic tables.
We could end there then, and there's a ceremony that we have to do there. But then if we wanted to eat, everyone could drive up to that, across from the Phipps.
Right.
Sounds good.
Hudson's gotten into the parking meter business, and some of us find that all kind of unfriendly and a mess. You have to download an app in order to pay your fee and all that. But putting that aside, it's got the other rudiments of a place to eat.
It does,
including a roof, you know, just in case it's misting. I'm sure it won't be driving rain, but there might be mist, right?
Okay, great.
So we will figure out these details. They will, as they emerge, we will let you know. But do make sure that I have your contact information so that I can keep in touch with you. Feel free to, I'll send you actually a registration form that you can forward on to your friends or family, and then we'll have the information so that I can keep a communication channel open with everybody who's interested. This has been a lovely morning. I am going to, I think, release us all to the sun that I see out there. We're going to go look at our pelicans. We have more than 100 pelicans. The Pelican Armada has arrived on our bay, and so we need to go pay attention to them and the birds, and everyone else. Enjoy your day today and your weekend. Soak up that sunshine, huh? We've been waiting.
Miigwech, Mrs. Day.
Thank you.